The signal came on a cold winter night in December 2187. It traveled through empty space for 340 years before it reached Earth. By the time it arrived, the species who sent it had already given up hope. Dr. Unipark was alone in the monitoring station when her computer made sound she had never heard before. She was 29 years old, tired from working double shifts, and drinking her 4th cup of coffee that night. The station sat on top of a mountain in Korea, far from city lights, surrounded by snow and silence. At first she thought it was a mistake. The signal was not like anything in their database. It was not natural. It was not from any human satellite or probe. It was something else entirely. Yuna spent 3 hours running tests. Her hands were shaking. She called her supervisor, Dr. Taiho Kim, and woke him from sleep. He told her she was probably wrong. She told him to come and see for himself. By morning, 17 scientists stood in the small monitoring room, staring at screens filled with alien symbols. By afternoon, the president of the United Earth Council knew about it. By evening, the whole world knew. Humanity was not alone in the universe. The translation took 11 days. Languages experts, mathematicians, and computer scientists worked together without sleep. They ate cold food at their desks. They argued and shouted and cried. And slowly, word by word, turned the alien message into something humans could understand. What they found broke their hearts. The message came from a species called the Valori. They lived on a planet called Velareth, 340 light years from Earth. They were a peaceful species. They built beautiful cities. They wrote poetry. They studied the stars. They had never made a weapon in their entire history, and they were dying, eh? Great empire called the Dreth Collective had come to their world. The Drath were conquerors. They moved from planet to planet, taking what they wanted, destroying what they did not need. They had conquered 43 species before the Valor. They had never lost a war. The Valori message was not a call for help. It was a goodbye. We send this message to whoever finds it. The translation read, "We are the Velor. We lived. We loved. We dreamed of touching the stars. Now we die. The Drath have come. Our cities burn. Our children hide in caves. We have no weapons. We have no ships. We have no hope. We send this message so that someone, somewhere, will know that we existed. Please remember us. Please remember that we tried to be good." Yuna read the message 7 times. Each time, she cried. The United Earth Council met in emergency session. Leaders from every nation sat in a great hall and debated what to do. Some said the message was too old. The Velori were probably already dead. Others said Earth should stay hidden. If the Drath did not know about humans, perhaps they would leave Earth alone. Fleet Admiral Kongdon listened to the arguments for 6 hours. He was 62 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served in Earth Space Forces for 40 years. He had seen humanity at its worst and at its best. He had watched nations fight each other and then come together. He had watched humans destroy and then rebuild. When it was his turn to speak, he stood slowly. The room fell silent. "I have heard many wise arguments today," he said. "I have heard why we should not go. The distance is too far. Our ships are too weak. Our weapons are too few. We do not know this species. We owe them nothing. All of these things are true." He paused and looked around the room. "But I did not become a soldier to hide from danger. I did not give my life to the stars so that I could ignore a cry for help. 340 years ago, someone on a distant world looked up at the sky and sent a message into the darkness. They did not expect an answer. They did not hope for rescue. They simply wanted to be remembered." His voice grew stronger. "We are humans. We have made terrible mistakes. We have killed each other. We have burned our own world. But we have also done beautiful things. We have crossed oceans. We have climbed mountains. We have reached for the stars. And when someone asks for help, we answer. That is who we are. That is who we must be." Admiral Kang placed his hands on the table. The Valori did not ask for a savior. They asked for a witness. But I say we give them more than that. I say we go to them. I say we fight for them. Not because we know them. Not because they deserve it. But because no one else will. The room was silent for a long moment. Then the Prime Minister of Korea stood. I vote yes, she said. The President of Brazil stood. Yes. One by one, leaders from around the world rose to their feet. Yes, yes, yes. When the vote was counted, it was unanimous. Earth would answer the signal. Una watched the broadcast from her monitoring station. She was still wearing the same clothes from the night she found the signal. She had not slept in days. But when she heard the result, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope outside her window. The sun was rising over the mountains. The snow was melting. Spring was coming. 340 light years away, the Valori were still fighting to survive. They did not know that their message had been heard. They did not know that help was coming, but it was. For the first time in galactic history, someone had answered a distress call. And the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Kong stood alone in his office that night, looking at a map of the stars. The Valori system was marked with a small red dot, so far away it seemed impossible to reach. But humans had done impossible things before. He picked up his communicator and made a call. Commander Lee, he said, we have work to do. Commander Junho Lee had built many things in his life. He had built space stations. He had built mining platforms on asteroids. He had built the fastest research vessel in Earth's fleet, but he had never built an army. Now he had 6 months to create one from nothing. Earth did not have warships. For the past 100 years, humanity had focused on exploration and science. They had ships that could travel between stars, but those ships carried telescopes and laboratories, not weapons. They had engineers who could build anything. But those engineers had never designed armor or missiles. JUNHO stood in the main shipyard above Earth, looking at the fleet before him. 200 ships floated in the darkness of space. Cargo ships, research vessels, mining craft. Old passenger transports that should have been retired years ago. This was his army. It is not possible, said his assistant, a young engineer named Somi Han. Hey, we cannot turn these ships into warships. They were not designed for combat, and we will redesign them, Junho said. He did not sleep for the next 3 weeks. He gathered the best engineers from every nation on Earth. He brought scientists and mechanics and welders. He found old military blueprints from wars that happened centuries ago. He studied them all. The work began. Mining lasers were removed from asteroid ships and recalibrated. These machines were designed to cut through rock. Now they would cut through enemy armor. Heavy cargo containers were melted down and reformed into shield plating. Navigation computers were reprogrammed to track enemy movements. Workers came from all over Earth. They worked in shifts that lasted 12 hours, then 16, then 20. They ate cold meals floating in zero gravity. They slept in corners when they could not stand anymore. And then they woke up and worked again. Among the workers was a woman named Hannah Beek. Hannah was 34 years old. She was a shuttle pilot from Busan, a city on the southern coast of Korea. She had spent 15 years flying cargo between Earth and the moon. It was boring work, but it was safe. She had chosen it because she wanted a quiet life. But Hannah had not always wanted quiet. When she was young, family lived near the Pacific coast. In 2151, the great storms came. Rising seas and terrible winds destroyed entire cities. Millions of people lost their homes. Thousands died. Hannah's parents and her little brother were among them. She survived because she was away at school. She came home to find nothing, just water and broken buildings and silence. After that, Hannah stopped caring about most things. She flew her shuttle and collected her pay. She lived alone in a small apartment. She did not make friends. She did not make plans. She just existed. But when she heard about the Valori signal, something inside her changed. She thought about that alien species huddled in caves, watching their world burn. She thought about children hiding from monsters. She thought about families being torn apart. She thought about herself, 23 years old. Standing in the ruins of her home, Hannah volunteered the next day. They assigned her to a converted transport ship called the Bright Star. It was an old vessel, slow and clumsy, with armor plates welded onto its hull like patches on old clothing. Its weapons were mining lasers that had been modified to fire faster. Its crew was made of teachers and farmers and factory workers who had never been in a fight. Hannah did not care. She finally had a purpose. As the months passed, the fleet began to take shape. Ugly ships became uglier as more armor was added. Civilian vessels sprouted weapon mounts. Training programs were created for soldiers who had never held a gun. Admiral Kong visited the shipyard every week. He walked among the workers, shaking hands, asking names, thanking them for their service. He was old and tired, but his eyes were bright. "Do you think we can win?" Junho asked him one night. Admiral Kang looked out at the fleet. 200 ships held together with welds and hope? "I do not know," he said honestly. "The Droth have conquered 43 species. They have technology we cannot imagine. They have experience we cannot match. Then why are we going?" The Admiral smiled. "Because we are human. We have never let bad odds stop us. We crossed oceans in wooden boats. We flew in machines made of paper and string. We walked on the moon with computers weaker than a child's toy. We do impossible things. It is what we do." Gunho nodded slowly. "Get the fleet ready," Admiral Kong said. "We leave in 2 weeks." The final days were chaos. Last-minute repairs. Final training exercises. Tearful goodbyes. 80,000 volunteers boarded the ships. Some were soldiers. Most were not. They were doctors and cooks and mechanics and pilots. They were mothers and fathers and children who had just turned 18. They were ordinary people doing an extraordinary thing. On the day of departure, Hannah sat in the cockpit of the Bright Star. Through her window, she could see Earth, blue and green and beautiful. Floating in the darkness, she had not been back to Busan since she left. She had no home there anymore. She had no home anywhere, but looking at that planet, she felt something strange. Pride, love, hope. "All ships, prepare for jump." Admiral Kung's voice came through the radio. "This is the moment we have worked for. This is the moment we have dreamed of. Today, we answer a call that has waited 300 years. Today, we show the galaxy who we are." There was a pause. "Today, we go to war." The engines roared. The stars stretched into lines, and 200 ships vanished into the darkness, racing toward a distant world where strangers were waiting to die. Hannah closed her eyes and thought of her family. "I am coming," she whispered. "I am finally coming." The journey took 4 months. For months of floating through empty space, watching stars pass by like distant fireflies. For months of training, eating, sleeping, and waiting. For months of wondering if they were flying toward victory or death, Hannah spent most of her time in the cockpit. She practiced combat moves in the simulator until her hands knew the controls better than her own face. She studied star maps until she could see them when she closed her eyes. She talked to her crewmates and learned their names, their stories, their fears. There was Dongwu, a cook from Seoul who had never left Earth before. There was Jisoo, a nurse who volunteered because her grandmother had survived a war and told her stories about courage. There was Minho, an engineer who built toys for children and now built weapons for soldiers. They were not warriors, but they were ready to fight. On the morning of the 4th month, the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The stars stopped stretching and became points of light again. And there, in the center of their view, was the Velary system. It was beautiful. A yellow sun surrounded by 7 planets. The 4th planet, Valorith, was blue and green. Like Earth, it should have been peaceful, but it was not. Drath warships filled the space around the planet. Massive vessels, silver and black, shaped like blades. They moved with perfect precision, circling the world like sharks around wounded prey. There were hundreds of them. Against them stood 200 human ships. held together with welds and prayers. "All ships hold position," Admiral Kong ordered. His voice was calm, as if he had done this 1,000 times before. "Let them make the first move." The first move came quickly. A signal burst from the largest Drath ship. It was translated instantly by the human computers. A face appeared on every screen in the fleet. It was alien, gray-skinned, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. The mouth was thin and curved in what might have been a smile. "I am Commander Olvith of the Drath Collective," the alien said. His voice was cold and smooth. "You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves." Admiral Kong activated his own transmitter. "I am Admiral Kong Duhan of the United Earth Fleet. We have come to answer a distress signal from the Velour people." There was silence. Then Olvith laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. It was the laugh of someone who has heard a joke that is too stupid to be real. "The Velouri," Olvith said. "They are ours now. Their planet belongs to the Collective. Their people belong to the Collective. You have no business here." "We disagree," Admiral Kong said. Olvith leaned forward. His 4 eyes studied the human ships on his screen. "Your vessels are primitive. Your weapons are toys. Your species has never fought a war in space. You cannot possibly think you can challenge us." "We do not think," Admiral Kong said. "We know we are humans. We have fought wars for 10,000 years. We have survived everything the universe has thrown at us. And we do not abandon those who ask for help. The Velouri did not ask for your help. They asked for anyone's help. We are anyone." Olveth's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, he studied the human admiral. Then he made his decision. "Very well," he said. "You will die here, and your planet will be next." The transmission ended. The Drath fleet began to move. Admiral Kong took a deep breath. "All ships, battle stations. Remember your training. Remember why you came. And remember that today, we fight for people we have never met. Because that is what humans do." The first Drath, weapons fired. They were energy beams. Bright blue, cutting through space faster than anything human scientists had imagined. They hit the front. Lines of the human fleet like hammers hitting. Class 3 ships exploded in the first second. But the humans did not run. Hannah pushed her. Controls forward, and the bright stars shot toward the enemy. Around her, other ships did the same. They scattered in all directions, breaking formation, moving unpredictably. The Drath were confused. Their computer systems were designed to fight organized armies. They expected neat lines and predictable patterns. They expected enemies who followed rules. Humans did not follow rules. Hannah flew straight at a Drath cruiser, lasers firing wildly. At the last moment, she pulled up, scraping along the enemy hull, her weapons tearing into their armor. The Drath ship tried to turn to follow her, but she was already gone, diving under another vessel. Weaving between enemies like a fish through weeds. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human pilots flew in ways that made no sense. They took risks that should have been suicide. They attacked ships 10 times their size, and they kept coming. When weapons failed, human soldiers boarded enemy ships. They cut through airlocks with mining tools. They fought in corridors with knives and fists. The Drath had not faced hand-to-hand combat in 1,000 years. They did not know how to respond to enemies who grabbed them and refused to let go. "Commander?" Olvith watched from his bridge in disbelief. His perfect fleet was in chaos. His orderly battle had become madness. "What are these creatures?" he demanded. No one had an answer. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 57 human ships were destroyed. 12,000 humans were dead, but 11 Drath warships burned in the darkness, and the rest of the Drath fleet was retreating, for the first time in 300 years. The Drath Collective had lost a battle. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kang closed his eyes and whispered a prayer for the dead. Then he opened them and looked at the planet below. "All ships," he said, "begin the landing. We have people to save." In her cockpit, Hannah wiped blood from a cut on her forehead. Her hands were shaking. Her ship was damaged, but she was alive. And the Velouri were still alive. That was enough. The first human ships entered the atmosphere of Velarath as the sun was rising. Through the clouds, they could see the damage below. Cities that once stood tall were now piles of broken stone. Forests that once covered mountains were black with ash. Rivers ran gray with dust. Lieutenant Woojin Shin was on the first transport to touch ground. He was 31 years old. A former police officer from Daegu who had volunteered because he could not stand by and watch others suffer. He had trained for this moment for months, but nothing had prepared him for what he saw. The Valori had been beautiful once. Their buildings were curved and graceful, made of white stone that caught the light. Their streets were wide and lined with trees that grew purple leaves. Their art decorated every wall, every fountain, every corner. Now it was all ruins. Woojin led his team through what had been a great city. They moved carefully, weapons ready, searching for survivors. The streets were empty. The buildings were silent. Dust covered everything like gray snow. Then they heard it. A sound, soft and afraid. Coming from beneath a collapsed building. Over here, Woojin said. They dug through the rubble with their hands. Pieces of stone and metal cut their skin. Sweat dripped into their eyes. But they kept digging. Beneath the rubble, they found a small room. Inside were 7 Valori huddled together in the darkness. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They looked like they had not eaten in days. When the light hit their faces, they screamed. They scrambled backward, pressing against the wall, arms raised to protect themselves. They were terrified. And Woojin understood why. The Valori knew about humans. Long ago, they had studied Earth and watched humanity grow. They had seen the wars, the violence, the cruelty. They had decided that humans were too dangerous to contact. Now, those same violent creatures stood before them. Woojin slowly lowered his weapon. He raised his empty hands, palms forward. "It is okay," he said softly. His translator turned his words into Valori language. "We are not here to hurt you. We are here to help." The Valori did not move. Their eyes were wide with fear. Woojin reached into his pack and pulled out a food ration. He unwrapped it slowly and held it out. "Please," he said. "Eat." For a long moment, no one moved. Then the smallest Valori, a child, stepped forward. She was thin and weak, barely able to stand. Her eyes never left Woojin's face as she took the food from his hand. She bit into it. Tears ran down her cheeks. After that, everything changed. The rescue teams spread across the planet. They found survivors in caves, in basements, in holes dug into mountainsides. Everywhere they went, they brought food and water and medicine. Everywhere they went, they found the same fear. And everywhere they went, that fear slowly turned to wonder. Dr. Mingyo was a surgeon from Gwangju. She had worked in hospitals for 15 years, treating broken bones and failing hearts. But she had never worked like this. She set up a medical station in the ruins of a Valori school. For 36 hours, she operated without stopping. Valori bodies were different from human bodies, but wounds were wounds. Pain was pain. She learned as she worked, adapting, improvising, saving lives through pure determination. A Valori mother brought her child to Minji. The child had been hurt in the bombing. She was dying. Minji worked for 4 hours. She used tools that were not designed for Valori bodies. She made decisions based on guesses and hope. And when it was over, the child opened her eyes and reached for her mother. The mother fell to her knees and took Minji's hands. She spoke words that the translator could not fully capture, but Minji understood. "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you." As the days passed, the relationship between humans and Valori grew stronger. Human soldiers shared their food with hungry refugees. Human engineers helped rebuild power systems. Human doctors worked until they collapsed, then woke up and worked again. The Valori watched everything with growing amazement. One evening, an old Valori named Tovan approached Admiral Kong. Tovan was an elder, one of the leaders of his people. His face was tired and marked with grief. I must ask you something, Tovin said. Admiral Kong nodded. Ask, why did you come? Tovin's voice trembled. We studied your species. We saw your wars. We saw your capacity for destruction. We thought you were monsters. We sent our signal expecting no answer. Why did you answer? Admiral Kong was quiet for a moment. He looked around at the ruins, at the Valori survivors, at the human soldiers working to help them. We are not perfect, he said finally. We have done terrible things. We have hurt each other. We have destroyed our own world and rebuilt it. We have every fault you saw in us. He paused.
Act.
But we also have something else. We have empathy. We feel the pain of others, even strangers. When we heard your message, we felt your suffering, and we could not ignore it. Where we come from, when someone asks for help, you help them. Even if it is dangerous, even if it is impossible, even if they are strangers you have never met. Tovin stared at him. No species has ever answered a distress signal. In all of galactic history, the strong ignore the weak. That is how the universe works. That is not how we work, Admiral Kong said simply. Tears appeared in Tovin's large eyes. He bowed his head. We were wrong about you, he whispered. We were so wrong. That night, the Valori held a ceremony. It was ancient, something they did to honor great heroes. They had not performed it in centuries because they thought heroes no longer existed. They performed it for the humans. Hannah stood among her crewmates, watching the Valori sing songs in their strange, beautiful language. She did not understand the words, but she understood the meaning. For the first time since her family died, she felt like she belonged somewhere for the first time in her life. She felt like she had done something that mattered. News traveled fast in the galaxy. Faster than light, faster than ships, faster than anyone could have imagined. Within days of the battle, every species in the known universe had heard the story. The Drath Collective, undefeated conquerors, had lost. They had been beaten by a species no one had ever heard of. A young species from a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. A species that had not even achieved interstellar travel until 50 years ago. The humans had come in the great halls of the Drath homeworld. Commander Olveth stood before the High Council. He tried to explain what had happened. He tried to describe the human ships, their strange tactics, their impossible courage. He tried to make them understand. They did not want to understand. They wanted someone to blame. Olveth was executed at sunset. His name was removed from all records. His family was sent to the mining colonies. In the eyes of the collective, he had never existed. But erasing Olveth did not erase what had happened. The Drath had lost. And for the first time in 300 years, other species began to wonder if the Drath could lose again, on a frozen moon far from Drath territory. A group of rebels gathered in a hidden base. They were called the Marith, a species the Drath had conquered 2 centuries ago. They had been fighting a hopeless war ever since, hiding in shadows, striking small targets, dying slowly. Their leader, an old soldier named Vorek, stood before a screen showing footage of the battle. Human ships charging into Drath lines. Human soldiers boarding enemy vessels. Human pilots flying directly at death and laughing. Who are these creatures? One of his fighters asked. Vorek shook his head. I do not know. But I know what this means. If they can beat the Drath, maybe we can too. He turned to his communications officer. Send a message to Earth. Tell them who we are. Tell them we want to talk. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. The Orani, a peaceful species that had surrendered without a fight, began to gather in secret meetings. The Keldon, who had been slaves of the Drath for generations, whispered a new word to each other. In Sani, it was their word for humans. It meant the ones who came. On Earth, the Council received message after message from species they had never heard of. Some asked for help. Some offered alliance. Some simply wanted to know if the stories were true. Had humans really crossed 300 light years to save strangers? Had humans really fought a battle they could not win? Had humans really done something that no species had ever done before? The answer was yes. Yes to all of it. On Velarath, the work of rebuilding continued. Human ships brought supplies from Earth. Construction equipment arrived, medicine, food, seeds for crops, materials for new buildings. The Valori worked alongside the humans. They learned each other's languages. They shared meals together. They told each other stories about their worlds. A memorial was built outside the largest Valori city. It was a simple structure, a tall white stone with names carved into it. 12,000 names. Human names. The names of everyone who had died in the battle. Hannah visited the memorial on a quiet evening. She walked slowly along the stone, reading the names. Dongwu, the cook, who had never left Earth. Jisoo, the nurse whose grandmother had taught her about courage. Minho, the engineer who built toys for children. All gone now. All sleeping forever in the darkness between the stars. She stood alone for a long time, watching the sun set over the Valori Mountains. The sky turned purple, then orange, and deep blue filled with stars she did not recognize. Commander Junho Lee found her there. The council sent a message, he said. They want the fleet to return home. Hannah did not turn around. And will we? Some of us. The admiral is staying. So am I. We are going to help rebuild. And we are going to prepare? Prepare for what? Junho stood beside her, looking at the memorial. The Drath will come for us now. We embarrassed them. We showed the galaxy that they can be beaten. They cannot let that stand. Sooner or later, they will come to Earth. Hannah nodded slowly. She had known this would happen. From the moment they decided to answer the signal, she had known there would be consequences. Are you afraid? She asked. Junho thought about it. Yes, he said honestly. I am afraid. The Dreth are powerful. They have conquered 43 species. We barely survived one battle against a small part of their fleet. If they send their full strength against us... He did not finish the sentence. Hannah finally turned to look at him. Will you run? No, neither will I. She looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Dreth were planning their revenge. Somewhere out there, rebel species were gathering hope. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was changing because a small blue planet had done something no one expected. Let them come, Hannah said. We showed them what we are. We showed them that humans do not abandon those who need help. We showed them that we fight for strangers. We showed them that we do not give up. She touched the memorial stone, feeling the names beneath her fingers. We showed them that we care, she said. And that is the most dangerous thing about us. We care about people we have never met. We fight for causes that do not benefit us. We cross the galaxy to answer a call that is 300 years old. Junho nodded. The Dreth cannot understand that. No species can understand that. No, Hannah agreed. But they will learn. She stepped back from the memorial and turned toward the human base. There was work to do. Ships to repair. Soldiers to train. A future to build. The Valori were safe for now. Earth was safe for now. But this was only the beginning. The galaxy had watched humanity stand up for the first time. Now they would watch what came next. Hannah did not know what the future held. She did not know if humanity would survive the war that was coming. She did not know if the rebellion spreading across the galaxy would succeed. But she knew one thing. Humans would fight. They would protect. They would sacrifice. They would do impossible things for impossible reasons, because that was who they were, and the galaxy would never forget it. She walked toward the lights of the human base, her footsteps steady and strong. Behind her, the names on the memorial glowed softly in the starlight. 12,000 heroes. The first of many.